Welcome once again to Lehto's Law. Here's Steve Lehto.
COVID is one of those mile markers that we're all going to be thinking about, things that happened before COVID or post-COVID. And then, of course, there's things that happened during COVID. And I had this channel back then. I've been doing this now for 10 years, so I had this channel back then. And during COVID, we had a ton of stories about people ripping off the government with those loans. You could apply at that time and say you had a company, and you get a loan from the government, which would be forgiven if you used the money to keep your employees on the payroll. And so people who didn't have companies would dummy up some paperwork, walk into a bank and get a huge loan. And then the loan would get forgiven, and then people would realize, wait, that person doesn't even have a business. And there were mistakes being made all over the place. It was such a sad, sad story. And there is still fallout from this. They've gone out and they've caught a bunch of the people who stole the money, but they haven't caught all of them. There's probably, billions of dollars missing that they'll never recover, but they're trying to recover the money. And so the sad part is, and I got this story sent by a lot of people, thank you very much. This is from moneywise.com, and Danielle Antos wrote it. A Florida veteran who's 76 years old has been ordered to pay back $20,000 for an SBA loan, that's a Small Business Administration loan, he never borrowed. But now the Social Security people want proof that he didn't take the money, because if he can't prove it to their satisfaction, they're going to start taking his retirement benefits to recoup the money that he never got. So the man's a military veteran in Tampa Bay. He got an alarming letter from the SBA. Letter claims that he took out a $20,000 loan and it was time to pay it back. So this is not exactly the COVID PPP loan, but this is the kind of thing that makes you wonder. It did happen in 2021. The problem here is that he never took out the loan. The error should be an easy fix since the SBA knows where they sent the loan payment. However, instead of fixing their mistake, they're demanding that he prove he didn't take out the loan. If he fails to do so, the SBA will garnish up to 15% of his Social Security retirement benefits. And so this is apparently their methodology. They're so busy chasing this down, they go, no, you prove it to us, not us prove it to you. So there are all these loans out there. He told WFLA, they're going to make you do the work. They're not going to do the work. They put the burden of proof on the person they're accusing of having the loan. So he's filed a complaint with the Inspector General for retirees like him who rely on Social Security benefits. Losing 15% of his income could mean the difference between making ends meet or struggling, because they can't take all your benefits, but they can take up to 15%. What are his options, and what should you do if it happened to you? Well, during the pandemic, some of these loans included different types of things: PPP loans, supplemental targeted loans, targeted advances, COVID-19 EIDLs, but I don't even know what those are. But many of the loans were forgiven if the borrower met specific requirements, such as using the funds to cover payroll costs. So apparently somebody, that's what we think, somebody took out this money and they used his name. And he's got a fairly common sounding name. They used his name, took the money and ran. And if you were legitimate, you'd take the money, you'd document how you used it, and turn in your documentation to get the forgiveness. But the person who skedaddles with the money doesn't bother with paperwork post-skedaddle. So during the pandemic, the SBA streamlined its loan requirements, leading to significant fraudulent activity. Oh, by streamlined, they merely made it where you could walk in and go, I've got a business with 100 employees, and my payroll is $500,000 a year. Oh, okay, here you go. And they just cut you a check. There may have been a piece of paper you had to write things on, but that might not even be true. According to the Office of the Inspector General, the SBA disbursed more than $200 billion in fraudulent loans. So I said a few billion. I'm sorry, a few equals 200. I remembered it being a huge number. And I'm like, it can't be that big. $200 billion potentially fraudulent loans. Yeah, it is that big. Fraudsters applied for loans using other people's information. And some of them used their own information, made up stuff. Just said, yeah, I've got a company. They left victims like this man to pick up the pieces when the SBA came calling, going, hey, we want that money back. The SBA, working through the Department of Treasury, can garnish up to 15% of your Social Security benefits if you default on a legitimate SBA loan. That limit was set in the Debt Collection Improvement Act, but there are additional protections in place, and they go into some higher math here. So if you receive $1,000 a month, you could lose $150. However, your benefits of up to $9,000 a year or $750 per month are protected from garnishment according to the SBAattorneys.com. So I'm not going to get heavily into the math on this, but they can take your money that you've been counting on getting. So the limit is designed to reduce hardship, but it can create financial challenges for those on fixed income. So it's not a hardship, it's a challenge. Okay? This man's case is particularly frustrating because the SBA is asking him to prove that something didn't happen. So keep in mind that the SBA dispersed this money to somebody claiming to be this man. Well, they should be able to find out where that money went. And that should be easy for them to prove because they're the government. They can track this stuff. All this guy could do is go, well, here's the bank account I had at the time and the money never went there. And they'd be like, oh, how do we know you didn't have other bank accounts? What's the guy going to, The Federal Trade Commission recommends reaching out to the SBA's Office of Disaster Assistance if you're facing a similar challenge. The Office of Disaster Assistance. You can also submit a FOIA request for the loan application and any additional related documents. So there's things you can do if you want to play Perry Mason here and figure it out on your own and then prove your case. But again, for you to FOIA the information is going to take time and cost some money when the government can simply get it themselves. Because remember, you're FOIA-ing the information from the government, which means they've already got what you're looking for. And if they were looking at it, they'd have what they were looking for. You can also check your credit report for unfamiliar accounts or unusual activity. You can close any accounts you don't recognize and report them to lenders and identitytheft.gov. Filing a report with the CFPB may also help. May there is probably one of the weakest words they could put there. It's highly doubtful it would help you at all, except give you about 30 seconds of satisfaction going, there, I did something. But you could, if you wanted to, report them to the CFPB. Finally, consider seeking legal representation, especially if the situation escalates, as it did for Carpenter. But of course, seeking legal representation will cost you money. And that's what you were trying to avoid in the first place when you got accused of something you didn't do. And so the weird part about this is that if the government thinks you committed a crime, let's talk about a felony. They think you committed a felony. So they would have to have you charged and put on trial and prove you guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And otherwise, they can accuse you all they want, and you might get worked through the system, but that's what they've got to do to prove their case. Here, the SBA sends you a letter, and they say, you owe us $20,000 for a loan you took out. Pay it back now, or we're going to start garnishing your Social Security. And notice that the burdens of proof are quite different there. Because in the felony situation, or even a misdemeanor, the burden is on them to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Now, they're accusing you of something and saying, you prove that you're innocent, which is extremely difficult to do. And so this is crazy, but I suspect it's happening more and more in terms of we just haven't heard about these cases. Now, this one is particularly sympathetic. The man is a veteran. He's 76 years old, and he didn't take out the loan. And they're going, yeah, but prove it. You know, it seems to me if they think you took that money and they have evidence of it other than a loan application that someone filled out, maybe they should prove it. Now, again, I admit, once in a while, I've got these harebrained ideas. I admit that. Maybe this is another one of my crazy notions that really should just not be true. Maybe. I think, however, one or two people in the audience might agree with me that perhaps they should have to prove it. Or when someone objects and goes, that wasn't me, I didn't take the money, they should go and look to see who got the money. And if they find that the money was sent to a bank way over here and that account is now closed, Well, go to that bank and say, what information do you have about this person? And they're going to discover that that person used a fake ID and a bunch of bad information to open a bank account. Because they opened a bank account with the correct information, statements would have gone to this guy. Right? I mean, there's going to be some disconnects in there somewhere, okay? I know some people are saying, Steve, paper statements, come on. Hey, the 76-year-old guy in Florida, I'm just guessing he would have opted for paper, okay? What? I could be wrong about that also. However, the point is, he didn't borrow the money, shouldn't have to pay it back, and shouldn't have to prove he didn't borrow the money. It should be on the government to prove that he did. And by the way, the problem we're having is the government was lazy in the first place, shoveling the money out the window. And they shoveled too much at the wrong rate to the wrong people. And now, suddenly, they're concerned about paperwork and cross T's and dotted I's. Okay, whose fault is it that they were shoveling that money out the window so frantically? That's their fault. That's why I remember doing videos about this during COVID saying, instead of approving the loan and cutting the check immediately, why not put in a couple days of work there and just say, I don't know, pull the tax records to see this person who claims they've got 75 employees. Have they filed any forms with the government to withhold wages for these 75 employees? Because that'll prove whether or not they get 75 employees. Oh, you've never withheld their wages? Why, you don't pay them salaries? I thought you said you were paying them money. You don't actually pay their wages? Oh, I hired them all yesterday. So it's a crazy story. I feel sorry for the guy. Hopefully he'll get it worked out. But again, once in a while, the media focusing on a story can help fix it. Danielle Antos wrote that for MoneyWise.com. Florida veteran, 76 years old, has been ordered to pay back $20,000 for an SBA loan he never took out. Now, Social Security wants proof he didn't take the money because otherwise they're going to start taking his benefits from him until they're paid back. Questions or comments, put them below. Let's talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching Lehto's Law. There's never enough time to do it right, but there's always enough time to do it over.